The moment my brother burst out laughing in the courtroom, I thought I had already lost. I was standing completely alone at the defense table with no attorney beside me, no legal team, and no one willing to speak on my behalf. My brother looked across the room with a smug grin and shook his head. Even worse, my father was sitting right behind him, smiling as if he was watching a victory he had waited years to see. What happened next changed everything. Before the hearing was over, the judge would read a file that nobody expected him to see, and the same people who mocked me would leave that courtroom in complete shock. My name is Emily Carter, and for most of my life, I believed family was supposed to stand by each other. Growing up, I was always the responsible child. While my older brother, Jason, got away with almost everything, I was expected to clean up mistakes, stay quiet, and never cause problems. If Jason broke something, my father blamed bad luck. If I made even a small mistake, I was told I should have known better. For years, I convinced myself that was just how families worked. Things became worse after my mother passed away. She had always been the person who kept peace in our home. Without her, Jason became even more confident that he could do whatever he wanted. My father seemed unable to see any fault in him. Every argument ended the same way. Jason was protected, and I was expected to apologize, even when I had done nothing wrong. The conflict that eventually landed us in court started after my grandmother died. She had been one of the few people who treated me fairly. Unlike my father, she saw exactly how differently Jason and I were treated. During the final years of her life, I spent countless weekends helping her with appointments, groceries, and household repairs. Jason rarely visited unless he needed money. After her death, everyone assumed her estate would be divided equally. That was what Jason expected. That was what my father expected. Then the will was opened. To the surprise of everyone in the room, my grandmother left the majority of her assets to me. She explained in a letter attached to the will that she wanted to thank the person who had genuinely cared for her during her final years. Jason exploded with anger. He accused me of manipulating an elderly woman. He claimed I had somehow pressured her into changing her will. My father immediately supported him. Within weeks, Jason hired an expensive attorney and filed a legal challenge. According to him, the will was invalid and should be overturned. At first, I hired a lawyer. Unfortunately, legal battles are expensive. Month after month, the costs piled up. Jason seemed willing to spend unlimited money just to drag the case out. Eventually, my attorney informed me that continuing representation would require fees I simply could not afford. The day before the final hearing, I made the painful decision to represent myself. Walking into that courthouse felt like walking into a storm without shelter. Every person on Jason's side looked confident. His attorney carried thick binders filled with documents. They had assistants, researchers, and legal experts. I carried one folder and years of truth. When Jason saw me standing alone, he could barely contain his excitement. He leaned back in his chair and laughed loud enough for several people nearby to hear. "No lawyer," he said. "You are finished." A few people turned to look. I felt my face burn with embarrassment. Then I heard my father chuckle. That hurt far more than anything Jason could have said. I wanted to disappear. Part of me wondered if they were right. Maybe I had no chance. Maybe the system was too complicated for someone without legal training. But I remembered my grandmother. I remembered every doctor appointment, every holiday, every afternoon spent helping her while Jason was nowhere to be found. I knew the truth, even if nobody else wanted to hear it. The hearing began. Jason's attorney spoke first. For nearly an hour, he painted a picture of me as a manipulative woman who had taken advantage of an elderly relative. He sounded convincing. Every sentence seemed carefully prepared. Several times, he glanced toward me as if expecting me to fall apart. When it was finally my turn, I stood and simply told the truth. I explained my relationship with my grandmother. I described the years we spent together. I provided receipts, appointment records, photographs, and letters she had written. My voice shook at first, but as I continued speaking, something changed. I stopped worrying about sounding like a lawyer and focused on sounding like myself. The judge listened carefully. Then something unexpected happened. He asked for a specific document from the court file. Jason's attorney suddenly looked nervous. The judge spent several minutes reading silently. The courtroom became so quiet that I could hear papers moving across desks. Then he adjusted his glasses and looked directly at Jason's attorney. "Did you review this section before filing your challenge?" the judge asked. The attorney hesitated. That single pause changed the atmosphere in the room. The judge continued reading. The document contained statements from my grandmother's medical evaluations conducted over several years. Multiple independent doctors had concluded she was mentally sharp, fully capable of making legal decisions, and completely aware of the contents of her will. The judge kept reading. Then he found something even more important. Attached to the evaluations was a detailed video transcript recorded when my grandmother updated her estate plan. In the recording, she explained exactly why she chose to leave most of her assets to me. She described my years of support. She also spoke openly about Jason's absence from her life. The color drained from Jason's face. His confident smile disappeared. The judge looked toward the attorney. According to this record, the deceased anticipated this challenge and took extraordinary measures to document her intentions, he said. The attorney said nothing. The judge turned another page. Then he found evidence showing that Jason had actually contacted my grandmother multiple times requesting money shortly before her death. Several messages revealed attempts to pressure her financially. A whisper spread through the courtroom. The attorney, who had seemed unstoppable only minutes earlier, suddenly looked completely unprepared. That was when the judge said the words I will never forget. She does not need a lawyer. For a second, nobody moved. The judge explained that the evidence already contained within the file overwhelmingly supported the validity of the will. The documentation was extensive, clear, and legally persuasive. He stated that no amount of courtroom performance could overcome the facts. I glanced across the room. Jason looked stunned. Then I heard his attorney quietly say something that carried farther than he intended. Oh my God, look at her file. The confidence that had filled their side of the courtroom was gone. What happened next felt unreal. The judge dismissed the challenge and ruled entirely in my favor. He also criticized the legal action for ignoring substantial evidence that had been available from the beginning. It was clear he believed the case should never have reached that point. Jason stood frozen. My father looked as though he had seen a ghost. For years, they had convinced themselves that I was weak. As people began leaving the courtroom, I gathered my papers quietly. Then a commotion erupted behind me. My father had collapsed. As he was helped into a wheelchair, our eyes met. For the first time in years, I did not see arrogance or disappointment in his face. I saw regret. The apology did not erase the past. Some wounds take longer to heal, but it mattered. Today, I still think about that courtroom. I remember standing there alone while my brother laughed at me. I remember feeling terrified and outnumbered. Most of all, I remember learning a lesson that changed my life. People often mistake silence for weakness. They assume confidence is the same thing as strength. But real strength comes from standing firm when nobody believes in you. My brother thought I was finished because I showed up without a lawyer. What he never understood was that I arrived with something far more powerful. I arrived with the truth.